This is Mike Carter, Alaskan Embers, reading number 1. In 1993 to 1994, I published 4 Alaskan Embers storybooks, stories, tales, anecdotes, vignettes, poems, and other such stuff by people who love Alaska, for people who love Alaska. This was the first one I published, and I'll do a reading out of that. But to give you a flavor, I published 4 of them. This was the second one I published. This is the cover of the third one I published. And this is the cover of the 4th one I published. I actually had a cover to the 5th one, which I never did publish. And I think I've lost all the source material for those stories by now. Anyhow, so I will be reading out of these source books in this YouTube channel over time. And the first one I have here is The Woodsman, Neglina. And Emil Nadi just told me how to say it, and I think I said it wrong. He actually gave me back then 4 stories by Emil Nadi. And as a side, these 2 vignettes, I might read 1, I might read 2, are based on incidents that happened to real people that I have known, that Emil Nadi has known. In the summer edition of Alaskan Embers, I will share 2 more vignettes. This was actually the spring edition, and he was going to give me 2 more vignettes. I will share 2 more vignettes by yet another 2 people who are no longer with us. As it turns out, out of the 4 I published back in 1993 and 1994, a lot of people are not with us anymore. All these people who are now gone, this is Emil speaking, I believe add to the power and spiritual strength that I feel in interior Alaska, especially when I am the Porcupine River area. What their relation is with the Neginla now, I have no idea. But there is a spiritual aspect to the Neglina, and during his life, we do share the same land. This particular short vignette by Emil is called Mary. Mary had many stories to tell about the Neglina, and these government men seemed very interested. Mary and her husband were in fish camp by themselves when some scientists came down the river, beached their boat, and asked all kinds of questions about the woodsman. Mary had many stories to tell about the Neglina, and these government men seemed very interested. In the late evening, when they were alone, Mary decided to go to the clear little creek to fetch a pail of water. She walked the narrow dirt trail with 10-inch grass growing on each side of the narrow footpath. She walked the 300 feet down the hill past the smokehouse to the stream and filled her pail. On the way back to the cabin, there was a Spam can in the middle of the footpath that had not been there when she went down the hill. Mary had spent all of her 65 years on the river. She recognized what that can meant. The can had been half buried in the mud along the riverbank. She knew that because it was half full of river sand compacted at an angle in the can. She stepped around the can and calmly continued on to the cabin. She told her husband about the can, and they decided to get into their boat, even at this hour at 10 p.m., to go talk to the scientists who were camped 2 miles below their fish camp. The scientists came back to camp with them, and to Mary's amazement, did strange, even funny things. They took pictures of the can, they circled the can, they bent down and looked at the can from all angles. They put on rubber gloves and carefully picked up the can between 2 fingers. They smelled the can and passed it from one to another, and finally put the can into a plastic bag and labeled it, all the while talking and shaking their heads. It all seemed very strange to Mary. The men thanked Mary and her husband, got in their boat, and went back down the river to their camp. That's The Short Mary, Story of Mary by Emil Noddy. And the next video, I'll read a second story he shared with me back in 1993 called Percy. And I plan on actually continuing these books now after 20 years. So if anybody wants to send me, what I called back then, a story, a tale, an anecdote, a vignette, a poem, and other such stuff that has to do with Alaska, I would make that part of storybook number 5, and it would be a reading eventually. And I'll send you a check for $25 just for the effort of giving it to me. Mike Carter in Anchorage, 907-240-6044. Have a great day. Bye-bye.